Hello and welcome to Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Conn. I'm delighted to be joined by Record Sport's Michael Gannon and Scott McDermott. Guys, how's it going?
Not bad, Daniel.
Alright, not bad. Just about thawed out after last night at Parkhead. Took a while getting up to chisel myself out the ground.
That was the coldest game of the season so far. Comfortable.
Was it brutal, eh?
Oh.
Aye,
even my heated Geely couldn't keep me warm, Daniel.
I was going to say, Scotty had his electric blanket wrapped around him in the ground with a heated Geely, didn't you? I was going to dive in for a wee hug there, Scott, but I couldn't reach you on the back benches of the press box.
Daniel, you're a fashion guru. I'm surprised you've not got one.
No comment. We're obviously going to talk about Celtic. And
I think we're going to talk about heated
Geely. That actually threw me off there a bit. We're going to talk about Celtic, but before we dive into that, I should say, everyone watching, Cercle Bruges 0, Hearts 0 is the latest score in the Conference League game, and if there's any goals and updates, we'll keep you abreast of them here on the Hotline Live. But as you guys both say, you were at Celtic Park last night. Mick, I'll maybe start with yourself. Did you think it was a fair result in the end?
Yeah, I do. I think a draw was probably a fair result, and probably, the kind of best that Celtic had hoped for last night. Funny enough, they actually could have won the game in the end. The last 20 minutes, I thought Bruges tired quite badly. They put a lot into the first kind of hour or so, and I thought they were kind of hanging on a wee bit towards the end. And Celtic nicked it, but I think the previous hour, Bruges were more than worthy of the lead at times. Albeit the opening goal came in kind of comical, kind of bizarre fashion, didn't it? Listen, it's a game that I think Celtic perhaps would have lost previously in Europe. I think, especially that first half, when I think they were kind of taken aback by Bruges being so aggressive and pressing so high at the pitch. I don't think they expected that. It took a while to kind of recover. But fair play, they got in at half time and they kind of did the running repairs. And I think the second half was much better. I think they deserved to get back into the game. And a point was okay in the end. I think a point actually isn't a bad result. I think, given the fact, I think the Leipzig win, was probably a wee bonus win. And that kind of balanced that out, I think. So I think they're still in a good position in terms of qualification. I think another 3 points would do it. Mm-hmm. So a point is by no means a disaster. Wasn't the best performance from Celtic. A couple of guys with the off nights. You got to give credit to Bruges. I think they played pretty well. I thought they were good against Aston Villa as well. Different kind of performance this time. A bit more aggressive and front foot. They were lacking a bit in the final third. I think if a bit more cutting edge Bruges, I think they could have really punished Celtic. I think that was an issue as well. They lacked a wee bit of kind of guile in the final third, which was Celtic's benefit. But listen, Celtic kind of rode the storm a wee bit, figured it out, and found a way to get a result. So I think they won't be complaining too much about it.
Scott, I was really impressed by Bruges. I mean, I almost feel a bit embarrassed to say that because, Mike King, in fact, writes in saying 2 years ago they got to the last 8 of the Champions League. Last year they got to the semis of the Conference League. They're no mugs. So I don't really know why I was so surprised, but I was really impressed by them.
I agree, Daniel. I think Mike's right. I think ourselves and lots of others probably underestimated Bruges, if I'm being honest. Maybe getting carried away slightly with the Leipzig performance and the result. And look, we said before the game, if Celtic could produce that level of performance again, then they would beat Bruges, and they probably would have. But the problem is, the trouble was Bruges didn't let them get to anywhere near those levels. I was really impressed with them tactically, how they set up, how they nullified almost every Celtic threat. I think, you're asking if it was a fair result. I think Bruges probably edged it, if I'm being honest. I think Celtic getting out of there with a point turns out to be a great result, because before the competition, if you'd have looked at the Leipzig and Bruges games, they'd have probably said, no, beat Bruges and maybe pick up a point against Leipzig. Well, they've done it. They've just done it the other way around. But Bruges were very impressive. I thought the captain, is it Vanacek or Vanaken, who's a really good player, been there a long time. He pushed right onto Callum McGregor and just didn't let him play, and I thought that was key to their success. I thought that was a big part of how they dominated, especially the first half. And they could have been I know they get the OG, but they could have been more in front. And then Schmeichel makes a brilliant save early in the second half. So, no, I think you need to give Bruges a lot of credit. But by the same token, as Mick says, I think he's saying a few years ago, I think even last season Celtic would have lost that game.
I
And
agree, yeah.
it's a sign. It's always a sign of a really good team when you don't play well and still come out with a positive result. So all in all, I think Brendan Rodgers will be pretty pleased to get out of there ahead of a really busy schedule of games coming up.
I think Rodgers also, I think there's a wee bit of credit as well. I think at half time, sometimes you can see a manager work almost immediately, and you can see he made some repairs to the team at half time. He had to address the fact they were outnumbered in the middle of the park. Like you say, McGregor was getting pressed and they're finding an extra man there all the time. Yep. But rather than, I thought the way they handled it was quite cute. I mean, they actually, rather than kind of retreat and try and kind of block kind of Bruges slightly deeper, they actually went the other way. I mean, the force made up right at the park, and it kind of took the kind of Bruges fullback out the game. But he was causing a few problems in the first half. Is it the boy? Is it the Cooper?
Yeah.
Related to Davy. he was a danger. But
I can only apologise to everyone watching. Sorry about that.
I know, I can't help myself. But he was a threat first half. The second half, his work cut out because Maida had pushed right up the park, and eventually the goal came down up that area. I'm not really surprised. So it was a kind of bold kind of move. I think Celtic wanted to put the ball away from the middle of the park because I think they were getting bogged down in there. I don't think Arnie Engels had a particularly great game. I think he found it hard in the conditions in the tight spaces. I don't think Atati had a great game. He gave the ball away off a lot of times. So they two were struggling in that kind of narrow, congested midfield. But the second half, Celtic kind of spread it a bit wider, went a wee bit more direct, got up the park, and it did. And it turned the momentum of the game. And I think the final 20 minutes, Bruges were starting to get a bit leggy because I don't think that's particularly the way they would play usually. That kind of real high intensity, high pressing game. They did right from the first whistle, by the way. I don't think it's a natural game. So I think after an hour, they had the touch of the Ange Postecoglou teams about them. They did get a bit leggy. You could see it. And the last 20 minutes, they were thinking, right, well, hang on. And at that point, even I think one each, they were happy with one each just to say, right, we'll once they get a disallowed goal, I think they thought, right, we'll take what we get here and get out of dodge. The game they could have won, but they're happy to get a point and get out there.
I thought the other big thing, or the key thing Rodgers did, Mick, was bringing Valle on for Taylor. I thought just before that substitution, Taylor looked absolutely shattered. And that's not a criticism because he's up against Scov Olsen, who the first half in particular was running him ragged. And I think I'm right in saying Greg Taylor's last act before he was subbed, it was just a routine pass across the park to Trusty. But it was so weak. I mean, it trundled, and I thought he's absolutely knackered. So Rodgers obviously identified this, and bringing Valle on, I thought gave them a real energy boost, a real freshness down that left-hand side. And obviously he comes on, and within a couple of minutes, he zipped in 2 passes to Maida, the second of which leads to the goal. So, no, just wee things like that. No, that's where managers earn their corn. Do you know what I mean? But ultimately, that's played a big part in getting Celtic the point.
Yeah. Just on Taylor, guys. I mean, it does look like he's off in the summer, doesn't it? I mean, his contract's up at the end of the season. I don't know. I just get that impression that we're seeing his last few months as a Celtic player. Is that? What do you think, Mick?
Not necessarily. I think he might wait and see what his options are after the new year. I think he would maybe listen. I'm not putting words into his mind, his mouth, or speaking for him. I think you might fancy a better deal at Celtic. I think a few more quid. He's played a lot of games. If you look at the last 3 or 4 years, he's up there with anyone in terms of appearances. I think he maybe feels that should be rewarded. I would completely understand that as well. But he might wait and see what the deals are on the table. I don't think he'll struggle for offers. I think Greg Taylor, half the English Championship would try and get him in a heartbeat. So I think he might have offers, but I think if Celtic were maybe that keen to keep him, I think they could push the boat out and get him. I wouldn't think you're not that back either, or dismiss it. So I don't think it's a fait accompli at this point in time. I take your point. We're now at December. It's not been signed. You can talk to clubs in January. At that time, sometimes managers and clubs think, well, you know what, we might have to start looking towards what's coming next. But you know what you're going to get from Greg Taylor. Listen, he's been a great servant for Celtic, and I know sometimes got a bit of stick from punters. I don't think he was great last night. I think he's building back to fitness after a wee injury problem as well. but I don't think anyone can knock his commitment and dedication to the side or his ability. I mean, he's so key to the way Celtic play sometimes. I mean, that it plays that kind of inverted fullback role really well, and it allows Arthur Johnson, the other side, to go kind of outside, and he's now creating a lot more goals and he's scoring goals as well, which wasn't the case last season. So I think he is a key member of the squad just now, and I wouldn't just kind of expect him to be away in the summer. I think there's a lot of twists and turns in this kind of story to come, I think.
The other guy that you mentioned there was Arne Engels, Mick, and we've had a deluge of comments sent in to Record Sports social media channels, all basically about Arne Engels. I mean, let me run through a few. Harry Campbell, someone who only sees Celtic a few games a season. I rate Bernardo above Engels or Hatate, much more competitive and rarely caught sleeping. A decent point last night, should have sneaked it in the end. Bernardo is our best midfielder. Why he's benched so much baffles me. And David Stewart, far better second half. It's about time Bernardo got the nod before Engels, because I saw nothing to warrant him as first choice. I mean, is that something that you guys, would agree with, being at the game last night?
I think he's struggling for a bit of form, Daniel. There's no doubt about that. But you need to remember how young he is. I know he came in for a massive fee, and obviously that's going to bring its own pressure. I mean, he's a club record transfer fee, 10, 11 million, whatever it was. And when he first came in initially, he looked as if he was just going to slot in seamlessly, add a bit of physique, power, goals for midfield, everything you'd want after spending that kind of money. But I think it was probably expected that he was going to have a wee dip and a wee lull. And the great thing for Rogers and Celtic is that they've got somebody like Bernardo to come in. He probably has been harshly dealt with a wee bit in terms of his minutes on the pitch, because every time he comes in, he normally makes an impact. I agree with the listeners in terms of last night. Engels was poor. He gets hooked after an hour. Was pretty ineffective. As I say, Celtic's midfield was getting dictated to by Brugge. So it wasn't a great night for him, especially they wanted to impress, with it being a Belgian team he was up against. So, I mean, I don't know what Mick thinks, but I would expect Bernardo to probably come in, certainly on Saturday against Ross County, and just over this really busy period. I think we spoke about last night, and I think they've got something like 5 games in the next 15 days. They've got a cup final, they've got Zagreb away, they've got Pataudry next Wednesday night. So a real kind of punishing schedule coming up. So I think a lot of these fringe guys are going to start. They're going to really need to prove their worth now, and Bernardo's one of them. But in terms of Engels, I wouldn't be too worried about it. I think he's struggling a wee bit. But Brendan Rodgers, it's one of his main strengths. He's adept at working with young players, getting them back to form, improving them as players. I don't think he'll be too worried. I think he knows what Engels can give him. It's just about getting him back up to the level again. But as I say, I think he might come out for a week or two with Bernardo stepping in.
Sorry, go on, Mick.
No, I totally agree with Scott. I think you will see him rotated, and he'll get a chance to kind of come in and out and all that stuff. But you know what this country's like. I mean, you're a dud if you don't hit me right away at the door 2 minutes. He's a dud. Listen, now Pablo Bernardo is now the answer to everything. You're a dud. Why is it saying this guy? He's sending him back to Benfica. He's hopeless. Listen, he's 21. This is his first Champions League campaign. I think he's shown some really good signs of being a quality player. I also think he's been taken aback. I mean, this is like you say, he's 21. He's got a new country. There's been certain games when he looked a wee bit. I mean, I think Kilmarnock away, miserable day. Kilmarnock do brilliantly. Plastic pitch. I think he was looked a bit confused. Tynecastle on Saturday, same again. Really intense. Gamble performance. Got a bit lost. He's had a few dodgy games, but I think he'll be fine. He's a quality young player. Like what Scott says, Rogers will work on him and develop him. I think his fees is neither here nor there. It's a lot of money in relative terms, but he's a guy. He's still one for the future rather than one for the present as well. There's a lot to come from him. I'm
about to show the strength and depth of our squad, guys, because
is that my number coming up here?
Michael Gannon's going off. Andy Newport.
I'm getting the army angles here. I'm off at half time.
7 out of 10 in the man bees, Mick. Well done.
Quite a good shift for half an hour.
No, Mick, thank you very much for giving us the lowdown in Celtic. Andy, how was it in Nice?
Loud. I don't know if you can hear me because I'm struggling to hear you guys. As per usual, just as I turn up, they turn on the PA system. Nice wee samba beat going on here, but yeah, lovely, quite mild. Little cracking stadium. Been here before once with the Scotland rugby team. Remember, it's been a great atmosphere, so hope there'll be something similar tonight.
Before we go on, I should say it's still Cercle Bruges 0, Hearts 0 in the Conference League. We'll keep you up to date with that. I mean, how big a game is it tonight for Rangers, Andy? Is it? I mean, I don't even really know how they prioritise the Europa League, or if they do.
It's important because right now Europe's about the only thing that's going well for Philippe Clement and his players. They've been so far off the pace, the title pace at home, that basically every result is now an existential crisis for the manager and his future at Ibrox. But I say in Europe they've been fairly competitive. 7 points from 4 games, plus 3 goal difference. They're banging track. If they could get a result tonight, and that's a big if because Nice, well, they've actually struggled in Europe. They've certainly shown their decent form in Ligue 1. But if they're over the level of Lyon, it'll be a tough task. But if Rangers can get a result tonight, get a victory, that's then pretty much qualified. If not qualified, we all expect that 10-point mark is what's going to be required. So, right now it's the only bright spot that Philippe Clement has got to cling to, and he'll be hoping that he can get another result just to ease that pressure that is starting to really sort of press and suffocate down upon him.
One big talking point amongst Rangers fans last night was watching the Champions League games. Malik Tillman scoring twice for PSV Eindhoven in the closing stages against Shakhtar. And it actually got me thinking. You think about Tillman, Amad Diallo at Man U, even Sam Lammers has come onto a game. Even Fabio Silva's done okay this season. It made me think that we've sort of slated Rangers recruitment a little bit, but maybe it's not the recruitment. I mean, these all seem to be pretty good players.
Listen, perhaps there's a bit of that. Some players just don't happen to, their faces don't fit. They don't find their form at certain clubs. We've seen it many times before, guys who have struggled. I'm thinking Timo Pukki at Celtic was, did absolutely nothing up here, then goes down to Norwich and tears it up. But I think what that tells you also is that the pressure levels at these clubs are something else. You need to be a special type of character, a strong character to be able to cope with flack, because it's not easy. You've seen the players that have taken stick week after week here, and if you can't handle that strain, if you can't handle the criticism, the focus, the scrutiny, then you won't last. So we've seen that. Some of these other guys, maybe they go to less pressurised environments. I'm talking about Lammers, Silva. Okay, Amad Diallo going to Man United, but by gosh, we never saw anything close to the form that he showed for Sunderland or even Man United when he was up here. So, and then obviously the other one you're talking about, Tillman. I mean, listen, Rangers wanted to sign him, but I thought he was class when he was here. Rangers were desperate to sign him, and Bayern Munich sort of moved the goalpost at the last minute and basically had to pay Rangers I think it was about £1 million in the end to break the purchase agreement that they had. So listen, I think everyone saw enough in Malik Tillman's year at Ibrox to think that this was a player that was going places, and if only they could get hold of him. Just unfortunately circumstances conspired against Michael Beale and obviously now Philippe Clement in that sense.
We're still waiting on the team news from Nice, but I was going to ask you if you anticipated any surprises, Andy, but I guess we've mentioned that Philippe Clement, he doesn't really have many options, does he?
No, I mean, the only I suppose big question mark will be in defence, whether or not James Tavernier comes back in, whether or not Leon Balogun comes back in to start. Both left out at the weekend. To be honest, if Tavernier doesn't start, I don't think that's any great surprise. I wrote that at the weekend now. I think we're at the point now where James Tavernier's days of being nailed down, first name in the team sheet, are over. He'll be picked in games where Clement or whoever the next Rangers manager believes that he can get through the 90 minutes and do okay. But I think we've seen that this is it's not just the start of the decline. I think he's well into his decline now. 33, listen, it's to be expected. I think we should make the point first that James Tavernier's been a terrific servant. Although there's a lot of debate over him and what he's achieved, I think he's been a terrific servant. But we should all expect a guy at 33 who's played the number of games that he has that he's going to, at some point his body's going to start giving way. I think we've seen that. I don't think he's got as athletic, as dynamic as he once was. I don't think he covers the ground as well as he once did. So, but I think that now has to be taken into account in terms of selection. You have to go, okay, we'll play one game or maybe the rest of another game. So, listen, that'll be the decision we'll get, and maybe another 20 minutes we'll find out that. But it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's Dujon Sterling at the right back.
Do you go along with that, Scott? Do you think the Tavernier era is over?
Certainly looks that way. Andy's right. Probably felt it more than ever the weekend with the Dundee United game, purely because Rangers were coming off the back of an international break where James Tavernier wasn't away. He was at the training ground for a fortnight. So, I mean, he's literally not kicked a ball in 3 weeks. And when has that ever happened at any point before in his Rangers career? It hasn't. So, the fact that Clement went with Sterling against Dundee United, I thought was a kind of pivotal moment. But as Andy touched on with the manager, you're just never sure. I mean, he rotates and he changes it and he tinkers with it so much. As much as you're saying he's got very little options, and you're right, but he still somehow manages to tinker pretty much every week. Middle to front, he can't really do it indifferently tonight. We know Hadji or Danilo in the European squad. It looks as if it'll just be that midfield three that's kind of nailed on. It looks as if it'll be Bayrami, Dessers and Czerny across the front line. So, as Andy says, the only changes will be at the back. Whether he goes with Proper or Balogun, I think he'd be better going with Balogun on a night like tonight. And whether it's Tavernier or Sterling. And I tend to agree with Andy. I think he probably wants to get Sterling a run while he's fit at right back. So I'd be surprised if it was any different to that.
One tweak, Andy, that I would like to see in the team tonight, and I think Rangers fans might be in agreement, or certainly a lot of them. Bayrami at number 10. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think that's an area where he could flourish.
Certainly an area we haven't seen him yet since he came to the club. Brief sort of fleeting moments where he sort of drifts inside, but listen, Rangers are so short and with natural wingers that they're having to play Nadim Bajami out in that left-hand side. Until that issue is solved, I think that's where he's going to be positioned. It's a needs-must at the moment for Rangers. It's how can they shoehorn their best 11 players, their best fit 11 players, if you want, and that means that the Albanians having to go out to the side. It will be interesting to see how he develops in there. I thought you saw with Hadji coming on at the weekend, getting into that number 10, it made such a huge difference. You suddenly had a player with craft, with imagination, with guile in the most important area of the pitch in terms of a playmaking role, and it changed the Rangers in an instant, because the first half they were so poor, they were so static, they were lacking any kind of dynamism. So I think they need to get somebody in that sort of that box seat, somebody to be the guy who's the creative inspiration for the team. And Clement sort of touched upon that yesterday in the presser, sort of saying, I'd asked the question to John Suter, does it feel like Rangers are more a European team than a domestic team because they can play in the counter, there's spaces for them to attack. Domestically, they don't really have that. And Clement sort of bristled at that and said, well, injuries have sort of robbed us of these creative types. So until that's solved, I think you're going to see similar repeat, or in terms of definitely domestically, them sort of going through the motions until they can get these more creative players into the positions where they can hurt teams.
You mentioned the presser, Andy. What did you make of Clement's comments about the rebuild? He's saying we're only 4 months in. I don't know. I just sensed a lot of Rangers fans wouldn't really be having that.
They're not. But the manager's going to be sticking to it. He's been sticking to that since the summer. That's his line. He's not going to change now because results aren't going away. He warned in the summer that this wasn't going to be an easy season, that they have to basically tear up a squad and start again. They've not got the financial levels that they had last season. They've had to cut the wage bill. So, listen, he's always going to try and mitigate the results and explain it and offer his explanation for it. I think some of it stands true. Of course it is. You can look, they've cleared out, they've lost how many thousands of pounds worth of talent, they've lost how many games, hundreds of games worth of experience. What they haven't done is replaced it with guys who are ready yet, and what they haven't done is showing games that they're adaptable and that they can, bring in guys that can show real potential. There's been fleeting moments of it, but not nearly enough, and that's where the criticism, because at the end of the day, Luke, come on, you were the guy who signed these guys, you were the guy as a coach, your job's to make these guys better, and so far the evidence of improvement is very scant, and he was the one who said that by this point in the season you've been seeing a better level of performance. I think a lot of fans would disagree with that. I think you saw a 45-minute performance at the weekend that was dreadful in the first half against Dundee United. And okay, he says that they were better once they get Hadji on and Danilo on. And I can sympathise with the Danilo aspect. They were hoping to get him back a lot sooner than November. But remember, Yanis Hadji wasn't in Philippe Clement's plans at the start of the season. He said so himself. They were actively trying to get him out the door. They wanted rid of him. It was only when he agreed to take a wage cut or not to accept this increase in his salary that was due after playing 100 games. That's only when he came back into the plans. So I'm not sure you can sit there and go, oh, it's great, we've now got Yanis Hadji back, when if things had worked out at the start of the season he wouldn't have been here. So I think there's I can see why fans are growing frustrated with some of the explanations from the manager. That's
sorry to jump in, Scott, but I need to jump in because Cercle Brugge have scored against Hearts. Cercle Brugge won, Hearts now Effie Kelly on the 40th minute, so not going well for the Jambos. Sorry, Scott, go on.
No, I was just going to say, listen, Andy's totally right about Hadji, and I actually think the manager, I think he's made a rod for his own back with all this rebuild talk. I think he'd probably do well to stop using that word, because by saying it was going to be a rebuild at the start of the season, it got fans excited. It got them kind of, they were expecting certain things, certain levels. And really what it's been, it hasn't been a rebuild, it's been a downgrade of the squad. And that's not Philippe Clement's fault. It's been a downgrade because the finances haven't been there and cutbacks have had to be made. Mm-hmm. And in various positions, they've downgraded in terms of the quality of player. Listen, the perfect example, and it's no slight on Connor Barron, but you let John Lundstrom leave and the replacement's Connor Barron. That's no part of a rebuild for me. So I think he'd have been better. I think he could have probably explained, maybe he didn't want to at the time, but I think he could have explained it a lot better in terms of what was happening at the club and how his hands were pretty much tied behind his back when it came to recruitment. And we discussed a few weeks ago that Rangers went to Pittodrie and lost to Aberdeen. 8 of the starting 11 were guys that were already in the squad. That's not a rebuild. And as Andy says, he's now relying on guys. He's relying on Hadji, who he'd completely written off. He's relying on Nico Raskin, who didn't seem to be part of the plans either. Couldn't get a game when Clement came in. He's having to turn back to guys, even Balogun, who's been there previously, because at times Proper hasn't looked good enough. So, listen, I just think he's making it harder for himself at times, Philippe Clement, by using that kind of language about rebuilds and all that. Let's be clear here. It's Rangers in pre-season, moved the goalposts for the manager in terms of what was going to be available to him funds-wise. And as I say, maybe it wasn't his nature, but if he'd have been more honest about that and laid out how tough this was going to be, he might be getting a slightly easier ride for the fans.
Andy, I know you're battling with the tannoy, but before I let you go, predictions. Do you think Rangers will get a result tonight?
I think this might be a bridge too far for them. Just looking at the level that Leon are at and what they did to this Rangers team, I think Nice are certainly domestically, their European form, as I said earlier, hasn't been great, but I think domestically they look like they're on par with Leon. So I think given what they did at Ibrox. I can see this being a tough night for Rangers, so I've went 2-1 to Nice.
Andy, I hope it's an absolute cracker for you. I'll let you go now for your pre-match duties. I hope it's a cracker of a game and safe travels home when the time comes.
Cheers, boys. I'll see you later.
Cheers, Andy. I thought I'd let Andy go there, Scott, before I got your predictions. How do you see it going?
I just hope he stays out the casinos in the French Riviera after the game. Prediction-wise, I've went with one each, Daniel, just purely because Rangers just seem to be getting results away from home in Europe, despite their domestic struggles. I think Nice will obviously come at them tonight, being at home. Everything I've read about Nice, they're an attacking team. They like to go at teams. I think it'll probably suit Rangers, similar to the Olympiacos game, even the Malmo game before that. And if Rangers get it right on the counter-attack, as well as obviously defending properly and keeping it tight at the back, then I think they can go and get something again tonight. I don't think Nice will be on the same level as Lyon, I must admit. I know they're no too far apart in the league. But I mean, I think Lyon, to me, with the names they've got, were a top class outfit. I mean, they're outstanding at Ibrox.
They looked ridiculous at Ibrox, didn't they?
It was obviously a different type of game for Rangers being at home. But no, I think, listen, it's a tough game, and if Rangers lost it, you wouldn't be surprised. It wouldn't be a disgrace. But I think they can go there and probably put another point on the board, and amazingly, that will just edge them closer to qualifying for the next phase.
Over in Belgium, half-time between Cercle Brugge and Hearts. Cercle Brugge 1, Hearts 0. And Scott, I think that brings us to the end of Thursday's Hotline Live with Record Sport. Thank you very much for watching at home, and thank you for all of the comments. And Scott, thanks again for joining me.
Cheers, Daniel.
Cheers for watching.